There is a place on the far eastern rim of Eurasia where the Pacific Ocean crashes against the final edge of the continent. Have you ever stood in a city that feels like it simply should not exist? Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky is that city, a lonely outpost guarded by 3 massive, active volcanoes. It is a place separated from Moscow by more than 6,700 kilometers of wilderness. How does a community survive when the earth beneath them breathes fire and the ocean before them never stops screaming? Today, we are going to explore a world of fire and ice where humans have carved a life out of the impossible. Stay with us as we journey to the dark, beautiful gateway of the Russian Far East. If you want to see the most extreme corners of our planet, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now. To understand this place, you must look back to the 17th century. The Russian Empire was expanding, pushed forward by the relentless spirits of Cossack explorers. These men traveled through the rugged frontier of the Kamchatka Peninsula when it was still a mystery to the Western world. They found a land that was beautiful, terrifying, and completely untamed. The true birth of the city happened in the year 1740. A Danish-born navigator named Vitus Bering arrived during his second Kamchatka expedition. He was a man of vision and iron will, working under the flag of the Russian Tsar. He sought to find where Asia ended and where America began. Bering brought 2 ships into the calm, deep waters of Avacha Bay. They were named the St. Peter and the St. Paul. To honor these vessels and the mission they carried, he named the settlement Petropavlovsk. It was a name born of wood, salt, and the hope of discovery. By the year 1812, this remote outpost was officially recognized as a town. It was no longer just a collection of huts on a stormy coast. It had become the eastern gateway of an empire that spanned 11 time zones. This was the moment Petropavlovsk began its transformation into a strategic fortress. The geography of this city is unlike anything else on Earth. It is built almost at sea level, but it is surrounded by a wall of fire. Towering volcanoes and steep mountains dominate every single view from the city streets. In many parts of the town, the peaks are so high they block the sun and the distant horizon. At the very heart of the city lies Avacha Bay. It is considered one of the greatest natural harbors in the entire Pacific Ocean. The water is deep, protected, and large enough to hold the world's most powerful fleets. This bay is the reason the city lives and breathes. Across the water sits a place of deep shadows and secrets. The closed city of Vilyuchinsk houses the Rybachi nuclear submarine base. It is a massive Soviet-era installation that remains a key part of Russia's naval power today. This creates a strange contrast between the peaceful beauty of nature and the cold machinery of war. The isolation of this city is nearly impossible to comprehend. It sits over 2,200 kilometers away from Vladivostok. There are no roads that connect Kamchatka to the rest of the Russian mainland. You can only arrive here by ship or by plane, making it an island in everything but name. What does it feel like to live in a place where you are truly cut off from the world? The residents here must rely on their own strength and the supplies that come across the sea. It is a life of independence, but it is also a life of constant alertness. climate here is a strange creature that defies the rules of typical Siberian winters. While the rest of Russia freezes in dry, biting air, Kamchatka is governed by the Pacific Ocean. This moisture softens the winter cold, but brings staggering amounts of snow. The city is often buried in white from the month of November through April. Autumn storms arrive from the Pacific with a violence that is hard to describe. October and November are the wettest months, filled with horizontal rain and freezing winds. Yet the ocean keeps the temperatures from dropping into the deep negatives found in central Siberia. In January, the average temperature stays around -4 degrees Celsius. Summer in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky is a fleeting, refreshing season. It rarely reaches the intense heat found in other parts of the world. Occasionally, the temperature will climb above 20 degrees Celsius, bringing a brief moment of warmth to the rugged coast. It is a time when the greenery explodes against the dark volcanic soil. The surrounding seas dictate the rhythm of everyday life. Fog often rolls in from the ocean, thick enough to hide the massive volcanoes from view. However, because the peninsula acts as a shield, the city stays clearer than the nearby Kuril Islands. In the dead of winter, the shoreline of the bay can freeze, trapping boats in a grip of ice. Nature here is not a backdrop. It is a powerful, active force. The city has seen temperatures swing from a high of 30 degrees Celsius to a brutal low of -31.7. These extremes test the infrastructure and the spirit of every person who calls this place home. The rainfall can be just as dramatic and overwhelming. In November of the year 2002, over 200 millimeters of rain fell in a single day. Imagine the power of that much water rushing down from the mountain slopes into the city streets. It is a reminder that humans are only guests on this peninsula. Daily life exists in a constant relationship with the Earth itself. Seismic activity is a regular part of existence, with tremors reminding residents of the molten rock beneath their feet. The people here have developed a unique resilience, a stoicism that comes from living next to monsters. Over the decades, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky became the heart of the region. It is now the administrative center of Kamchatka Krai, acting as the political and municipal engine. It connects the isolated northern territories with the rest of the Russian Far East. The harbor is the lifeblood of the local economy. It handles the vast fishing fleets that harvest the riches of the North Pacific. Without this port, the entire peninsula would struggle to survive in its beautiful isolation. The demographic history of the city tells a story of ambition and loss. At the end of the 19th century, only a few hundred people lived here. Then, the Soviet era arrived, bringing industrialization and a massive military buildup. The population began to explode as people were drawn to the edge of the empire. By the year 1989, the population reached nearly 270,000 people. It was a thriving urban center filled with sailors, scientists, and engineers. The city was a symbol of Soviet reach and the conquest of the Far East. But the fall of the Soviet Union changed everything. The economic hardship of the 1990s and the geographic isolation triggered a long decline. Many people chose to leave the cold and the volcanoes for the milder life of Western Russia. They sought opportunities that the remote peninsula could no longer provide. Even with this decline, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky remains a giant in the region. It is the largest city in Kamchatka and home to more people than some entire neighboring provinces. Ethnic Russians make up the vast majority of the population, keeping the culture of the mainland alive on this distant shore. What keeps people here when the world is so far away? Is it the beauty of the three brothers, rocks standing guard at the mouth of the bay? Or is it the feeling of being the first to see the sun rise over the Russian Empire? There is a certain pride in surviving where others would falter. The city is a landscape of contrasts. You will see modern apartments standing next to grey Soviet blocks. You will see luxury SUVs driving through streets that are frequently buried in meters of snow. It is a place where high technology meets the raw, primitive power of the earth. Tourism has slowly begun to change the face of the city. People come from all over the world to see the Valley of Geysers and to climb the volcanoes. They want to experience a wilderness that hasn't been tamed by the modern world. This brings a new energy to the local economy, though the city remains rugged and unpolished. The story of this city is a lesson in human persistence. It teaches us that we can build a home anywhere if we are willing to respect the land. It shows us that even in the most remote corners of the globe, community and culture can flourish. Living here requires a different mindset. You must be comfortable with silence and the sound of the wind. You must be prepared for the earth to shake and the snow to fall without end. It is a life of heavy coats and warm hearts. As we look at the volcanoes towering over the harbor, we have to ask ourselves a question. Could you handle the isolation of the Far East? Would you find peace in the shadow of a volcano, or would the distance from civilization be too much to bear? There is a special kind of freedom that comes from being at the end of the road. When you face your own challenges, remember the people living on the edge of the Pacific. They do not complain about the snow, they simply shovel it. They do not fear the volcano, they learn to live beside it. This strength of spirit is something we can all apply to our daily lives. Take a moment to think about your own remoteness. What are the things that make you feel isolated, and how can you turn that into a source of strength? Sometimes, being on the edge gives you the best view of the horizon. Thank you for traveling to the edge of the world with us today. If you found this journey through fire and ice fascinating, please give this video a like. Share your thoughts in the comments about whether you would ever visit such a remote place. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next exploration of the world's most incredible destinations. Until next time.